One of the worst maritime disasters in UK waters has been commemorated in Portsmouth 100 years on. Over 600 people lost their lives when the SS Mendi sank just off the Isle of Wight after accidentally being rammed by SS Darro. South African and British delegates came together to honour the victims at Milton Cemetry, where 9 of the men who died on board SS Mendi are buried. Our reporter Nicole Ris was there and talked to relatives of those lost at sea.
They came to help, but they died before they had the chance to. On January the 16th, 1917, South African troops left Cape Town for Le Havre on the SS Mendi to fight in the First World War. They belonged to the last contingent of the South African Native Labour Corps.
On the night of the 21st of February, in thick fog, they were struck by the SS Darro, sailing at full speed despite the weather conditions. The ship sank in 20 minutes. Hundreds of men aboard the SS Mendi, who perhaps hadn't seen water until they boarded Mendi in Cape Town, were killed.
The commemorative event at Milton Cemetry brought together South African and British delegates, honouring the life and bravery of the victims, 9 of whom found their final resting place in Portsmouth.
Who knows what those men thought they were heading for when they embarked? I know many people have questioned whether they genuinely came of their own free will, and whether they or their families were ever compensated. The answer is probably not. But life in the early 20th century was hard for most people who lived in poverty, wherever they came from. Their choices were often driven by the need of food, shelter and immediate survival. For thousands, including my own ancestor who died in the Great War, the decision to join up may have been as much motivated by hunger as by the desire to serve a distant king.
The ceremony also saw relatives of the ones who died on board the SS Mendi. Rosalee and Tennyson both lost their grandfathers when the ship sank in only 20 minutes.
My grandfather, Robert Alexander MacTavish, he started out as a colour sergeant and then magically they changed him to a lieutenant on board the Mendi. He was actually pulled out of the sea but died before they got onto land from hypothermia.
And in your case?
My grandfather didn't survive. He could not survive. After that incident of the ramping by SS Darro, he couldn't survive. When the ship sank and then his body submerged into the deep seas of English Channel. He was never found up until now. He was never buried. We don't know where his body ended. He had this wish to be a soldier, to fight alongside the British. He volunteered. Nobody forced him, because coming all the way from Eastern Cape to land in someone's town and to go to war. He was a militant person.
My grandmother actually she wrote a little bit of prose describing her husband. And by her account, he was a fine, upstanding gentleman who was kindly, had a good sense of humour, and between them they had 6 children. And when my grandfather went to war, he left behind my father, who was only 4 years old, and the youngest was only 2, and there were 4 older brothers and sisters. So it's an absolute mystery why a fine young man such as my grandfather would leave such a big family behind in Cape Town. My grandfather was a post office worker and in Cape Town, and I have a feeling that probably the income wasn't very much, and so he felt that, because he'd previously fought in Southwest Africa, in Namibia now, during some skirmishes there. So he was used to being a soldier, and obviously, I don't know, the pay was good.
Tennyson says that commemorating the tragic incident and its victims is of great importance.
To see a South African coat of arms in a foreign land, our national flag flying high, our national anthem played, and to see our High Commissioner in a foreign land, you can see as a country we are represented.
And for the family, my sisters have come over from South Africa, especially for this event. My grandfather was one of the fortunate ones where there was a body to bury, and he's buried here in the Milton Cemetry, one of the 8 that were buried here, a physical body. But I do feel for his colleagues who disappeared into the ocean and were never seen or heard of again. Tragically, a lot of bodies were found on beaches around the channel. Hopefully we'll never have another war and people won't have to drown and disappear into nothing, and that they will have some sort of memory and ceremony, like for Mr.
Tennyson.
No, not you, your grandfather.
Your grandfather Ebenezer, Ebenezer Nyovane, yes.
Yes, Nyovane.
This has brought these countries, those old memories, it has brought them together. As also we are celebrating together, it has brought us together. That is the significance. Because SS Mendi was a British vessel going to France. Then you could see not only South Africa, 3 countries are involved, directly involved on the SS Mendi.
Nicole Ris, for That's Solent.